Okay, so now we're doing 2-8, which is finding percents. Okay. And most of the time you're going to see these questions in the form of what is a certain percent of a number. Okay. When we get into a little bit more advanced ones, we'll figure out some more difficult ones, but for the meantime, we're going to do this. So let's start with a really easy. What is 50% of 8? Okay, so in your head, you already know that, because 50% would be half, right? We know that's 50% are always over 100. Hi, Susie. Susie the cat's meowing at me right now. And that equals a half. So it's saying, what is half of 8? Well, you know that half of 8 is 4. But if I'm going to come back here and use my decimals to do that, there's two ways you can do that. You either need to convert your percent to a decimal, which we know is 50 over 100, so we can write that as 0.50 or 50 hundredths. And then of means multiply. Okay, you're always going to multiply that when you see the word of, and then of that number. So one way we could do that, option 1, is to say 0.50 times 8. So 8 times 5 would be 40. Add another 0 because you got 8 times 50, so that would be 400. And then drag your decimal back twice because it was 0.5, so that gives you 4. Now, another way you could do that is knowing that you're always going to be moving your decimal to the left 2 spaces on a percent. You're always going to be dragging that back because remember it means out of 100, so it's 50 hundredths, right? It's 0.5, 0. You can actually just multiply your percent by that number and drag it back at the end. So option 2 is just do 50 times 8, which would give you 400. And then remembering that you have to drag the decimal back 2, you would get 4. I kind of like option number 2, but it's up to you. Either way you can do the problem. So let's do another one. What if I say, what is 80% of 30? Okay, so option 1 would be to change 80% into a decimal, where you have 0.8 times 30. So you would have, ignore the decimals for a minute, and you would have 24. 8 times 3 is 24. Add your zeros, and then bring them back. Option 2 would just be to multiply 80 times 30, which you would get 2400. And then remember to drag that decimal back 2 spaces, so your answer would be 24. You're essentially doing the same thing both times, just in a little bit different way. Okay? What happens if you have a decimal that's kind of not the easiest decimal to do? Let's say you have, what is 75% of 72? Okay, same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and use option 2. It's the one I prefer. You don't have to do that. It's fine. 75% of, so I'm just going to multiply 75 times 72. And all you have to do is remember, move the decimal to the left 2 spaces. When you're done multiplying, okay? So 5 times 2 is 10. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. Put the 1 down there. 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 7 is 49, plus 3 is 52. I'm going to add all that up. 10, 4. Now I have 5,400. But think about it logically. If I'm doing part of 72, because 75% is less than 100%, logically I'm not going to have an answer that's 72, or sorry, that's 5,400. It's got to be less than 72. So that should be another reminder to you to just drag that decimal back 2 spaces So your answer would be 54. Okay? Let's do one where we have a partial percent. So let's say you have 12.5% of 64. Okay? So to me, I'm going to do the same thing. I think, especially with these types of problems, if you just multiply your raw numbers without worrying about the percent, and then just remember to move your decimals at the end, you're kind of better off. So I'm going to do 125 times 64. Put the decimal in there, it's 12.5, but I'm going to ignore it for the sake of multiplying. So that's 5 times 4 is 20, 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10, 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Put your space holder, 6 times 5 is 30, 6 times 2 is 12, plus 3 is 15, 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So now drag it down, 10 and 8. Now remember, I had this 5 there, so I've got to drag that back one space. Then when I do that, because of my percent, I'm going to drag it back another 2 spaces. So your answer would be 8. Easy peasy. That's it.